Hello and welcome to Alan History Nerd. In this video I'm going to be looking at the first part of the first unit in our ancient history course. This is a study of relations between Greek and non-Greek states in the years 492 to 404 BC. There is a slightly odd thing in the ancient world where dates seem to be working backwards. Now in this you look at essentially the war between the Greek states and Persia, and then the war between the Greek states and attempts an eventual peace between them, in very notably looking at Sparta and Greece. As we go through, I'm going to look at the two key ancient historians whose work will be absolutely central to your studies. I'll look at a very basic some very basic level detail of some of the content of the unit, and then also just introduce you to some of the key debates that you'll look at in the course of the teaching. Now, the first of our key writers is Herodotus, and now he is called the father of history by another key writer from the ancient world, Cicero, who was a Roman lawyer. Now, Herodotus was born in Halicarnassus. He is, well, he's just quite good fun to read, really. He comes across as in a way that he focuses on individual accounts and first-hand accounts, and he tends to present different views as you go through. He also tends to pick stuff that he thinks will be really interesting. In part, we believe because actually when he was delivering his histories, he would have been reciting it in front of crowds, and therefore you wanted lots of really interesting stories that were going to capture the imagination and capture the interest of those who were listening. Now, this is kind of his own introduction to his own work. Here are presented the results of an inquiry carried out by Herodotus of Halicarnassus. The purpose: to prevent the traces of human events from being erased by time, and to preserve the fame and importance of remarkable achievements produced by both Greeks and non-Greeks. Among the matters covered, in particular, the cause and hostilities between the Greeks and non-Greeks. And so this is the war with Persia. Now, as I said, he's an entertaining read. In fact, some of the other ancient writers accuse him of adding stories in for entertainment, rather than concentrating on the kind of the actual details of what happened. And there's an accusation that some of these stories that he adds in aren't necessarily 100% truthful, and some modern historians have gone to say, as far as to say, an awful lot of what he writes is made up. This is, however, not necessarily completely the case, because archaeology has suggested that his accounts of what happened are generally truthful and fairly accurate. So a slightly controversial figure in some ways, but one of the kind of the great writers of this time, and gives us a really kind of interesting take on what happened, in particular with the way that he kind of, rather than passing judgment a lot of time, just kind of presents, well, this person said this and this person said that, and leaving the reader really to make up their own mind. Now, the other key writer is Thucydides, and he's an Athenian historian. He's sometimes referred to as the first scientific historian. His work is really the bedrock, really, of some of the modern day subjects such as international relations. So he was a general in the Peloponnesian War. He was exiled from Athens and then travelled to visit Athens' enemies and them to observe. And so his history is, I mean, it's very exciting stuff in terms of what's going on, but maybe a bit drier than Herodotus in terms of the way that he wants to look at it, a bit more kind of systematic in the way that he's trying to build a picture of what is going on. And this is his own particular take on his writing. I lived through the whole of it, being of an age to comprehend events and giving my attention to them in order to know the exact truth about them. It was also my fate to be an exile from my country for 20 years after my command, Amyphilos, and being present with both parties, and more especially with the Peloponnesians by reasons of my exiles, I had the leisure to observe affairs somewhat particularly. again, apologies for my terrible pronunciation, particularly of ancient Greek places and names. Now, he is very critical of Herodotus and says a lot of the stories Herodotus tells are untrue. But it gives us a good balance in terms of our study and looking at different points of view in terms of the way things are presented. So again, a really important writer, and you'll be looking at all kind of different parts of his writing in terms of building up your picture of these events. So what the unit covers essentially is the Persian War, which the Greeks united to fight against Persia, and you probably know some of the kind of the big stories from that. Most notably the story of the Battle of Thermopylae with the 300 Spartans standing against this enormous Persian army, and then this then ends with the Greeks seeing off the Persian threat, but then we see internal turmoil in Greece with the Peloponnesian War, in particular with the fighting between Sparta and Athens. So here we see the two kind of major Greek powers going at each other. So with the Persian War, now this conflict is one that spreads over quite a significant period of time, and we see three major attempts to invade Greece. The first attempt sees the Persian fleet sinking in a storm, and they kind of give up. The second one is a much bigger one, where they sailed their army to near Athens. They are defeated by the Athenians at Marathon, and there's the famous story of the guy running to give the warning and starting the race, the marathon, and the distance and everything being based on that. We then see the huge army in the third attempt, led by the Persian king Xerxes, and he is held up at the Battle of Thermopylae, which is the story of the 300 kind of. And he burned down Athens, but then was finally defeated at Plateau, or Platy. I'm never 100% sure on the pronunciation of that. And with that, we see the end of the kind of the Persian Wars, and then we have peace and we have victory for the Greeks. But that peace doesn't last very long, because the next stage of what we go into is the Peloponnesian War. And with this, we see Athens and Sparta, who are the two major powers in Greece, kind of fighting for control over the whole of Greece. So Athens has a large empire, lots of ships, and again, we'll see, as you'll see in the Persian Wars, the Athenian fleet was often very important in the fighting. And so on the sea, the Athenians are dominant, but on land, it's the Spartans and their formidable fighting army, which seemed almost invincible on land. Now, Sparta had an oligarch, a government which was run by leading numbers of rich people, whilst Athens was the world's first democracy, Athenian democracy, and this idea of equal citizenship, and that on all key issues, the Athenians would gather and cast their votes to make decisions on policy. And the war swung from one side to the other, and eventually Sparta won. But the fighting had a terrible impact on both sides. So even Sparta as the victor is left hugely weakened by the events of the Peloponnesian War. And so this would then leave the stage open for a new power to rise and take over. And one of the things that you'll look at later on in the course is you'll look at the rise of Macedonia, and obviously leading into the events of Alexander the Great. So the big questions you'll be hopefully asking and answering during this course will be, so what were the most significant reasons for the Greek victory over the Persians 480 to 479 BC. Can we just put this down to the strength of Spartan fighting? Is it more complicated than that? What about the role of the Athenians? What about mistakes and weaknesses amongst the Persians? So a whole range of things that you could pick in that. We'll look at the main causes of the Peloponnesian War. Where does the blame lie? What are the underlying causes? What are the key triggers that cause the Greeks to start fighting each other, having previously been fighting against external forces? And then ultimately, as we go through the Peloponnesian War, why is it that Athens fails? And again, it's interesting questions here about democracy and what we can learn about democracy in these events, and also about the Spartan system and what is it that particularly made Sparta strong when it came to war. So I hope that's been helpful to you in terms of thinking about that first topic. Over time, I will work with my colleague Tim, who helped put a lot of this together, and try and provide a whole range of videos on this ancient history course, which will be launching in September 2022, and hopefully we'll have lots of resources there. And what we're going to do in the meantime is just provide some kind of tasters to give you an idea of what the study will involve. Also on the channel is loads of stuff on early modern and modern history. So we've got anything from the Tudors through to modern Britain. There's stuff on 19th century America, there's stuff on Tsarist and communist Russia, there's stuff on more modern America, the years of Truman and Eisenhower after World War II. So there's lots and lots of stuff on here. The channel should continue to grow with more and more history content. There's also a large coverage of A-level politics on here as well. So if you haven't done so already, then please do subscribe and check out all the content on the channel. Thank you very much for watching.